Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra. All right. Today, we're going to be talking about another book. It's called Bharat Rising Dharma, Democracy, and Diplomacy. And to talk about it, I have the author of the book with me, Utpal Kumar. Utpal, welcome. Congratulations on the book.
So, thank you, Kushal. I'm a huge fan of your work. So yeah, it's honor to be
Thank
here.
you. Thank you very much. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, and maybe we can start over there.
Uh, I've been journalist for last more than 2 decades. Have been working in Delhi with most print media. I've been basically a print journalist. So I started my career around 2003-4 with Pioneer, and then worked in Hindustan Times. Then I again came back to Pioneer and headed their features section called the Agenda. And then I was a features Sunday editor with Mail Today, which is part of India Today Group. And then I was with NewsX for a while, and now I'm here in First Post News 18.
So in your journey in the last so many years, do you think print journalism has changed at a fundamental level, or do you find any changes because you've been involved for such a long time, or still at its core, because I'll tell you why I'm asking this. I'll explain this. I'll caveat this. It's like I believe television journalism, with exceptions, is not journalism. It's more infotainment, while the real news comes from print. And I'm not just saying print in a digital form or in an actual newspaper form. So when I say print, it could be actually a website, it could be a hard newspaper or something of that sort, but basically that's where we get the news. What has come down in from what we call the 8 o'clock slot to the 11 o'clock slot on national television, that's not journalism. Yeah, before that is journalism, where we have reports happening or breaking news happening. That is journalism. But what is understood, primetime debates is not journalism, right? And it bothers me
Absolutely.
that all journalists are bracketed in the same manner. I take offense to that. I
Yeah.
And I'm not even a journalist, and I take offense to that. It's just it hurts my sensibilities as a rationalist to actually look at this. I
Yeah.
was like, listen, you're an anchor, you're not a journalist. Call an anchor an anchor, a journalist
Yeah.
a journalist. Like a Shiv Arur, he's a journalist. He does journalism. When
Yeah.
Shiv is on India Today, he's doing journalism.
Yeah.
And an anchor is doing anchor
Yeah.
ka job.
He allows others to talk. Yeah.
And
Unfortunately, I think you're spot on that. That's the unfortunate part. But print journalism definitely has also changed. And, but one change I can say, I'll largely focus on the positive point, that it's not a closed club right now. Like, uh, जो जो हमें सुनने को मिलता है कि प्रेस फ्रीडम खतरे में है, कम हो रही है. Actually, in last 20 years, 21 years of my profession, I believe that press freedom has actually increased. There are more variety in the kind of articles being published. There are new people allowed to be, they get chance to write. Not the case earlier. All these people, so-called elites who today complain about this press freedom. They had kind of completely gagged up the media. It was run by a few people where only certain kind of opinion will go. Today is better than that. Quality, I say that yeah, we could have done better. Any opinion, but I believe that the state of media is still not run very professionally, and that is the problem. So sometime like आपको अच्छा लेना तो आपको पे करना पड़ेगा. You have to make it work. And print media is
yeah,
still lagging. Most of them. I'm not talking about Times of India. But
yeah,
most of them, they don't pay well, so they don't get good quality, people working for that. So that's a problem. But I still believe that print media per se is in some ways dying profession in some way. Like I started from print, today I'm in digital. Tomorrow maybe I may try to be like a podcast. So things are changing. Nature of print is changing. But the the flip side is that the good side is that if there are more variety, there is more diversity in opinion. There are people like me also writing. There are people who were previously like the left wingers or so-called secular people. They're still there. They're still controlling most of the media. And mind you, it's 10 years down the line of Modi government. They're still up in front. And I shouldn't be naming, but I'm saying that most of this, so they're still controlled by them. But things have improved on that front for sure.
So, from a writing perspective, so as we are talking about your book, so as a from a stylistic perspective, like what are the key differences, let's say when you're writing an article vis-a-vis when you're writing a book, like what differences does one need to keep in mind from a style perspective?
Uh, I, 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 should, I should tell you, it's very difficult for a journalist to write a book mostly because journalists get a very short burst of energy. तो वो आर्टिकल लिखने के लिए वो ठीक ठाक है लाइक एक दिन सुबह उठे और 2 घंटे में लिख दिया बट बुक राइटिंग इज अ डिफरेंट बॉल गेम यू हैव टू फोकस फॉर 6 8 months at least for that. And that's where I find most of my journalist friends, some of the very senior editors, they they find it very difficult to write books. I most of my publishing friends complain that ये editor ने भी 2 साल लगा दिया यार भी दिया नहीं. And the problem is that journalists focus sometimes. And I'm not talking about all people. There are people like Arun Sorry, who churn out books every now and then. But most of journalists, they have very short spot of energy. They're very good with writing articles. But you give them tell them to write 50,000 word book, then they've found a.
So as far as this book is concerned, why did you decide to write this? Like, what was the ideation behind it? Like, what did you feel that you were like, nahi, iske upar likhna hai kind of a situation?
Ah, largely, one is there that every journalist wants to write a book, and so मुझे भी कीड़ा था कि I should write a book, and for last almost like 15 I was thinking that I should write a book. So that is there. That apart, the real reason is last 10 years, I've seen that there has been a huge gap into the reality and how things have been projected about this country largely, especially by mainstream led Western media. So उनके हिसाब से तो वो यहाँ लोकतंत्र खतरे में है भाई यानी हम तो मुसलमानों को तो मार के भगाने वाले हैं या फिर प्रेस फ्रीडम नहीं है. But when you actually go and see it, you also and you yourself meet so many people. The reality is absolutely different. Country has never been more liberal in some way. In media, I can say about this thing that we are far more diverse and we are like far more different views to appear on newspaper. Same is the case with Bharat per se across the country. There's a lot of optimism about this country. And if you leave apart some exceptional 1 or 2 cases here and there, which happen in the world, everyone is largely safe. Definitely, minorities are safe in this country. But then I realized that this so-called strong Modi government is largely reactive rather than proactive in counting the narrative war. So I thought, I should write in my own little way to correct that anomaly about that, and to project the thing that is the Bharat Rising. That Hindu assertion per se is not a negative phenomenon. It's actually India, which is democratic country, is precisely because it's Bharat. You cut out the Bharat element, Sanatana element from this, and you will get Bangladesh or you'll get Pakistan. It's plain. So I wanted to put that thing forward. Also, what I did is, there is a huge, big pastime on this our so-called, left illiberal gang. They will immediately, switch back to Nehruvian era and say, "Oh, समय इतना अच्छा था, अब देखो खराब है." So I also brought Nehruvian rule between 1947 to 64, and on basic fundamental issues, I compared that era with Modi's era. And when the results were stark, that era came out to be actually point of what actually we have been told. That's far. Nehru era has been illiberal in many ways. It has been some of his opinion of Nehru about press was voting, to say the least. And he was the one who introduced first amendment. What he did with he got Hindu code bill, but his stand on about Muslim were absolutely about he wanted to keep them in ghettos for that matter. So and also like more than 3 dozen books, and I'm told it's more than that books he banned in 17 years of his rule. I don't remember a single book being banned in the last 10 years. So when I compare the two, I found that there is a huge discrepancy, huge gap between the reality and the projection. So my book was an attempt to just correct that.
So let's discuss a little bit more, because I think this is chapter 6 of your book, right? On the Nehru, what do you call that? Three Musketeers or something, right? Of the
Yeah,
Nehruvian era or something
and
of that.
yeah, Nehru tyranny. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
basically, on Three
now,
Musketeers, I talked
now,
about yeah.
no, go ahead, go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
So on the Three Musketeers, I talked about Boston Bush. Then I'm taking the example of B.R. Ambedkar, who is vastly misunderstood in this country. And then Veer Savarkar. And how these three people were the victims of tyranny. I realized that there were many others. I just chose three, but these three were from the totally different background, totally different ideological moorings. So just to create that semblance of diversity. So yeah, and they all three were victimized. All three were pushed to the corners in their own way, in the name of Nehruvian uh, uh, way of life, as they call it, or governance.
Mm. But then, uh, I don't know. I think somewhere down the line, I would never vote for Nehru. I've never hidden that fact. Um, but I guess, like, how does one look at Nehru? At the end of the day, he was a prime minister of India, our country. He was also a part of the freedom struggle for our country. And like, how does one try to be balanced with Nehru? Like, everything in today's world is so polarized and so tribal that one cannot even have a discussion around Nehru in a positive light, in a mildly positive light. I would even say not even positive, mildly positive light. But at the end of the day, whether it's Gandhi, whether it's Nehru, everything is so polarized these days. Like,
But
how does one even frame a discussion then?
see, I think we have to be honest about. We have to see him as a product of his time. Nehru, and I'm not one person who says that Nehru hated this country or no, वो देश को बेचना चाहता था. I mean, I'm absolutely clear about that. He loved this country, but his ideas were absolutely flawed. Most of them. That's the unfortunate part about it. And here, when I say a product of time, that was the era when socialism, communism was flavor of the era. Everyone thought that it is a good. Even like Mao's tyranny and a terror came out in the public much later, and it was seen as a very positive force. Same was the case with Stalin. So it took time. It took time. In fact, in our country, most of the people who today earlier I want to talk about who became the right wingers in academia and journalism, they all started as a activists, left wing intellectuals. So I don't blame on that part. The problem with Nehru was that Nehru was convinced that he's right. He was right. That was the problem. He was absolutely. He was not ready to think that okay, he may be wrong. He track. He never did that, and and also he carried the guilt of what I remember the book, reading the book of Sitaram Goelji, Why I'm Hindu, and where and he also says the same point. He says that no, that when after जो होता है ना हजारों साल की गुलामी के बाद, you get a class of people who actually behave like their previous oppressors. So this was the class of people Nehru belonged to. He actually behaved like the British state. And he openly said also, I'm last Englishman in this country. And his behavior with fellow beings were exactly the same way but how British would behave with Indians. And here I'm talking Hindus. And I remember this example, Sitaram Goelji mentioned in his book, where there was huge movement against in favor of cow protection in this country, and a lot of sadhus, and they were protesting in front of. And one gentleman from US who was a friend of Sitaram Goelji, he came to India, and he was covering that thing, or he was photographing and all these things. And he saw and he was aghast. This Nehru comes, and उनकी बहन Vijayalakshmi Pandit. And the moment sadhus see Nehru coming, Nehru had an aura. See, we are people, we believe in goodness of people. saintliness और वो गांधी से एसोसिएटेड थे तो उनको थोड़ा और एडवांटेज मिला था. So this sadhu, couple of them runs towards him, हाथ जोड़ते हुए, they run towards him, and this guy doesn't even talk, just slaps him right, left, and center. तो साथ कहानी है खत्म नहीं होती, उनकी बहन आती है और वो भी दो चार और लगा देती है. And this guy was aghast, when this guy meets Sitaram Goel, he says कि यार इनका में ऐसा होता तो उसकी नौकरी चली जाती. Uh, Later, Sitaram Goel says that Nehru का जो this attitude Nehru was confined only with Hindus. He would be very differential towards Muslims and utterly differential towards British and other people. And that's why he says, this actually, he took on this attitude from that ruling class of people who tried to, completely follow the British way of life, where, you can beat Hindu and get away with this. You have to be tolerant and very nice to Muslims because they can fight back, presumably. And with British, of course, they're the ruling class. So Nehru had this kind of, this thing, dichotomy. Uh, uh, but largely, and this is where the problem started. The problem. I wrote about that about my book. I don't blame Nehru for taking JNK to UNSC. My personal feeling है कि India would have been forced by any chance. India was not a big power. US and pushed India. Where Nehru made the mistake, and that was the mistake of because eagerness to be in power, and also his loyalty towards the British system. He continued the same old bureaucracy, same old British system, even after getting independence. So हुआ क्या जब कबीलाओं ने पाकिस्तानी फोर्स जब कश्मीर पे अटैक किया, when they attacked, Nehru actually wanted Indian forces to take back the POK. Indian army was led by British general who was in constant touch with Pakistani army, who was also led by British general. So it was a fixed game. So these two generals who decided कि कहाँ हमें रुकना है, कहाँ से हमें रुकना है, किससे आगे नहीं जाना. And this guy could do nothing. Similarly, the case with why to get Lord Mountbatten as a voice of the independent country. So this guy mistake was that he could not come through that his British subservience. वहाँ फंसा हुआ था और उसकी ideology first, like if you see his foreign policy, and where I find it completely different. After him, it is actually Modi's foreign policy which is starkly different. Before that was ideology first. Ideology first as भैया नहीं, like that. As in my book also. Rasgota Saab in his memoir writes here that Kennedy wanted India to do the nuclear test first. They offered and everything. They refused. And Kennedy's idea was just simple that he wanted democracy in Asia to test the nuclear bomb before China does, communist China does. This guy refuses. So this is ideology first. This is not your nation first. You should have done it. कोई आपको help करा ले लो यार. Same with the case with UNSC seat. We refused because बोले भाई को तो फिर हम लेंगे. And look what happened after that. So this is the problem with his entire focus was on ideology. He lived in his own, and in 1962 he paid for that. His dream came crashing.
Now I want to talk about a section of your book that I disagree with, and disagree with quite a bit. So this is chapter 5 of your book, right? Chapter 5 of your book, which you call Brahmins, Dalits, and the Curse of Whisperers, right? I'll tell you which bit I disagree with.
Yes.
I don't disagree with the bit where you narrate the atrocities. Those I don't disagree with. I'm opposed to Perrierism. I call Perrierism casteism. It's also casteism. Any form of discrimination based on a caste or a jati-based identity or a varna-based identity is casteism. Where I disagree with you is, I think, once again, the attack on the Chitpavan Brahmins post Gandhi's assassination by Godse the thug, and this is my version. Godse is a thug, nothing else, no hero. He was a thug. My views. I'm not saying these are your views. And the Godse's murder of Gandhi pushed Hindutva as a movement back by at least 50 years, in my opinion. But that's what you expect from people of a certain intelligence, which Godse was. And again, my views, not yours. But the problem here is that I'm not saying you intended to say that, but sometimes it could come across, which is why I'm asking this question. That there are no doubt about Perierism and its violent rhetoric against Brahmins. In fact, I had written a whole thread exposing Perierism, how Perierism is anti-science, anti-Brahmins, anti every
Yeah,
good thing in life. And there is actually a dedicated clip on my channel of like 8 minutes of me basically reading what Periyar stood for, and it was all against any decent liberal person would stand for. But the point is that one cannot forget to talk about what led to it and what happened before that. Every time what happens is everything that happens today, like I will not agree with one line, especially where you say Brahmins are the new untouchables, right? Like I think it was page 69 or something where you had written that. My memory, if my memory serves me, like that is something I can't
yeah,
agree
yeah,
with, because
yeah,
I refuse to believe that they're untouchables. Like
yeah, yeah.
there is no government data that proves that they're just not. That's my point of view. But I wanted to talk about that with you. So what
Yeah,
made you
no, I
conclude that?
agree with. In fact, first I should tell you that I totally agree with what you said about. Yeah, yeah. But first, I want to agree with you. You said about Godse. Godse was absolutely. I don't believe that he's a terrorist, but he did something which actually harmed Hindu cause immensely. Gandhi was was gone force by the time he was killed, and actually you see that they book Makan Pranjpe, Gandhi Afterlife, and where he hints about that. He doesn't say hints about the fact that governance at that time, Nehruvian administration, was indifferent towards this. उनके assassination के दौरान भी bomb blast हुआ था. फिर भी the day the second attack happened by the same group of people. They were just 15 thullahs with lathis. So you know what government also wanted. Government was tired of Gandhi, and my assumption is that had Gandhi served 5 more years, he would have led another stagger against Nehru government with the kind of policies Nehru was doing with all this statism and everything. So actually, it harmed Hindu cause. Hindu Mahasabhas are gone forever. Hindus become very this thing apologetic about what happened. About Brahmins, it was I think a bit tongue-in-cheek remark, but I agree on one thing that I don't know about other places, but and I'm not talking about the elite Brahmins. There are Brahmins who are doing well, who actually control. Even Nehruvian time also, most of the bureaucrats were Brahmins. I'm not that layer, topmost layer. Come out of that layer, and then layer which is the Brahmin layer were poor. Most of the Brahmins are poor. I in Noida,
Absolutely.
you come to
No
Noida, obviously
disagreement there.
they
No
work in
disagreement there.
so these Brahmins, when I say untouchables, see, they deserve as much support from the government, as much support from the society. But such has been the narrative that you can't help them. They can't be helped. And in fact, there is a tendency that it's better that no helping with Dalit or Samhita. But I'm not a per se. I believe that these people are taken out, and actually I believe historically the so-called Dalits they fought to save Hindu society more than anybody else. Historically, that data is there. But in that context, I said that such has become the political mahal of this country. Uh, Brahmin can be killed, and no one will say a point about that. Brahmin can be cursed, and Brahmanism can be compared with dengue, and the person can get away. I imagine the person said the same thing about Dalits or Muslims. I'm sure it would have been by now. So on that context, I use the thing, but largely I agree with what you want to say.
See, what I feared the most is why I raised this issue is I wanted to give you the opportunity to clarify, because a lot of times what happens is the author writes with one intention, the reader reads with another intention, and one thing leads to the other, and the author never gets the opportunity to clarify to that reader where he's reading. Uh, I want to reiterate again and again, what's happening with the Brahmin community in Tamil Nadu is an abomination. And my way of looking at it is simple. I don't apologize for anything other than what I have done. I don't even apologize for anything that my parents have done. Forget what my ancestors did. मैं क्यों सॉरी बोलूं? मैंने थोड़ा ना किया.
True.
मैं क्यों सॉरी बोलूं? I am a firm believer in this mindset that I don't pay for anything else. I understand reservations as a system. I support SC/ST reservations. I oppose OBC reservations. I've been very consistent on my thoughts. I understand all these things. But at the end of the day, the discussion around this subject in India is, and by the way, I'm actually on board that I believe that certain sections of the SC/ST Atrocities Act are just insanely draconian. And I am with you on that also, that I believe that as a free speech person, if you believe in the concept of free speech, then hate speech has to be part of free speech. You cannot narrate hate speech because it's impossible to define what hate speech is. Like I mean, I hate certain vegetables is also hate speech technically. What, how are we going to create grade? Oh, so you can hate vegetables and food, no, but
Yeah.
you can't hate beef, or you can't hate pork. Like it is so
Where you put
stupid
the
that,
line?
which is why hate,
Yeah,
yeah, which is why hate speech should not be litigated, which is why America doesn't litigate hate speech no matter how
yeah,
much people try it over there. The courts are so clear in America, they're like,
yeah,
even hate speech is part of free speech. Yes, companies can take say tomorrow, if I'm working in a company and I say something batshit crazy, like all Brahmins are bad, or all Dalits are bad, or all Muslims are bad, my employer is clearly under their own rights through their freedom to fire me, and I should be bearing. But I don't want the state coming after me. And India, all these acts are draconian. But this discussion, sometimes I feel in this, I could be wrong. It's okay. And I'll change my view if somebody thinks I'm wrong, and if they provide enough data for that. But I feel the data is so lopsided when it comes to even atrocities committed on groups. If we measure on the basis of atrocities committed on groups, first of all, even one atrocity
yeah,
committed on any group should be condemned. But the point is, if we are looking at through the group lens, then we have to accept statistical analysis from the group lens, don't you think? So in that case, I did not want people to misunderstand what you have written in chapter 5, which is why I purposely brought that up, what you had written on page 69.
yeah, yeah. No, I wanted to add that I'm glad you asked that, and that's very important. Well, there will people who will just take that line and project it as Brahminical project, which is not. Actually, I'm one person. As I said, I support reservations, and there are reasons for that right now, because we can't take away. So there are forces who will divide Hindu society just in that name. So for that sake also, and look what happens. Those people who talk about, mostly talk about Dalits. They are the one who hate Sanatan Dharma. They are the they are the one who talked about, Dalit Muslim unity where they were not. In fact, that's why I have a huge admiration for what Ambedkar does. Ambedkar always followed what he saw. He may be wrong, but he always wanted to go with facts in front of him. And look what happened with that other massacre in the book I talked about, Mari Japi. Mari Japi wouldn't have happened had their leader Jogen Mandar wouldn't have fallen for this imaginary Muslim Dalit Bhai Bhai policy. And look, the entire community suffered, and they are still suffering. They are the real. They need CA more than anybody else. CA is for them. 70 years down the line.
In fact, can we talk about this a little more? That the biggest casteism that exists right now is actually those poor Dalits of Pakistan that are suffering under the casteist authoritarian regime that is the Pakistani state and the Pakistani society. I say this with full responsibility. Pakistani society
Yeah,
mein casual casteism is existing on all layers, no matter what they want to think. Oh, हम तो जी जात पात नहीं करते, और तुम भी करते हो, तुमको पता भी नहीं है तुम करते हो। मतलब मतलब उनको ये भी नहीं आइडिया कि वो कर रहे हैं। एंड इनफैक्ट लेट्स टॉक अबाउट, बिकॉज यू ब्रॉट अप द सीए, लाइक
यदि वो
हाउ
जात
डज
पात नहीं करते तो बांग्लादेश बनता ही नहीं।
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल, वो बांग्लादेश बनता नहीं। ये बहुत सही बात बोली। एंड आई लाइक दैट यू ब्रिंग इन दीप हल्दर्स बुक आल्सो in that chapter, you on untouchability, Brahmins and Dalits. You talk about Deep Haldar's book also, which is, by the
Yeah,
way, an excellent book. And but on this issue
yeah,
on CA, because see, your book is two halves, right? First half is more our society and an internal dynamics, and the next half is diplomacy and all those things in that sense. But talking about from that the CA perspective, how the hell don't you think somewhere also we as a society and as a bunch of listen, you are a journalist, I'm a podcaster, don't you think we have also failed to communicate as individuals? Like, CAA should have been the first thing any decent human being should have supported. Here are communities that are actually being put under
Yeah.
pump. And do you think we have failed somewhere, or it's just that no matter what we do, these people are going to hate us?
Yeah. No, you're right. We have failed. We as a society have failed. In fact, on many things, we kind of, that's problem with Hindu mindset right now. We want some other person to stand up and do things for us. हम खुद खड़े नहीं होना चाहते हैं. हम चाहते हैं. That's why we elected Modi. And second time we elected with more mandate. Third time I'm sure this will be even bigger one. Because we believe, but we are not ready as a society to stand up on our own and थोड़ी सफाई खुद कर ले, थोड़ी अपने काम खुद कर ले. We always want state to do. The same case will happen with Hindu temples. Still under seeking the liberation. It's precisely because Hindu society is not woken up. They don't ask. आप सोचो ना, इसे डेमोक्रेसी पॉलिटिशियन वही करेंगे, चाहे जो भी पार्टी हो. I don't have a high regard for most politicians. They will do what people will ask. कल को यदि half the India wakes up and says we want the campus to be liberated, won't they do it? They will do happily. Problem is we have not raised the issue. And same is the case with on the CAA issue. CAA issue, I believe, and I wrote also an article on that recently, is our moral obligation to the people left behind. It's more than anything else. Our people, Gandhi, Nehru, and all these people went there and convinced these people, these Dalits, these जो धनी लोग थे, जो अच्छे लोग थे, वो तो आ गए अपने आप. They were smart enough. जो गरीब लोग थे, उनके पास तो छोटी सी लैंड है. They were made to convince. They were convinced कि भैया रहो, we are there, we'll safeguard. And later they this Liaquat Nehru pact was also reformation that okay, we are there to look after you. But today, when less than 2% of Hindu population is in Pakistan, and in Bangladesh, in fact, आपने दीप हलदार की बात की. दीप हलदार latest book on being Hindu in Bangladesh, a course से professor, the Dhaka University professor, who says that Hindus in Bangladesh have just 3 decades. 3 दशक से बचे हैं वहाँ हिंदुओं को. They won't be Hindu. And in fact, I was talking this election जो हो रहे थे वहाँ शेख हसीना की. I was talking to a couple of my friends who were covering, who went there, and they said that Hindus of that country were looking at the election with deep sense of panic. Had Sheikh Hasina lost that election, there would have been mass exodus of Hindus. So this is the state of affairs, and we don't even wake up. We don't even care about. Most of people don't care about. That's the problem. Or they care about, but they don't really express it loudly. We need to express. Look how they express. And if some other commentary on Fridays or some other day, they come out and express themselves. Sometimes you have to express yourself. Sometimes the government can turn these. Government can come maybe like I was told when I was very young that my brother used to tell me that don't be under impression that police is there to protect you. He's somebody who wanted to keep some weapons at home, and he said the police is not there to protect you. Police is there to maintain law and order. If your killing makes that happen, police will allow that to happen. Very strong word. I keep that in mind. Police is not there to protect me. Police is there to make law and order thing work. And if sacrifice of one person like me happens, they will allow it to happen for the larger cause. So apna protection, apne haath, that Hindus have to realize. They somehow don't. And so that is the problem. Now coming to even the larger issue about all the people, all this that CA against Muslims is bum comes, all politics. We all know that, and no serious person will even argue that. But what is important is that when your state promises a section of Hindus that please don't come to India, be there, we are there to look after you. And if that doesn't happen, isn't it the responsibility of the state to fulfill that thing? It's as simple as that. आप अपने आप को सुपर पावर बोलते हो, विश्व बोलते हो. Do it. Show it right now. And where will these people go? The easiest thing they can do right now, which I tell all the so-called higher caste Hindus, yeah, please stop discriminating so-called lower caste, because tomorrow they will convert and then आप उसको भाई बोल के बुलाओगे, भाई कैसे हो? It's better that आप पहले से ही भाई बना लो यार. But that thing is coming up in the mind. I'm not saying that we have not improved. The society is waking up, but
Definitely.
it will take time. I think.
But now I want to take the turn into part 2 of your book. Now, I love the title, by the way, of chapter 10, Pakistan and the Chimera of a Friendly Neighborhood. So now, my friend Sushant Sareen will be very proud of you. He'll be like, Dekha, Sushant will be
Yes,
like, सही बात किया उत्पल. So let's focus on this now. uh,
yes,
I, I
yes,
am a hawk
absolutely.
on the Pakistan issue, but not as much of a hawk as Sushant Sareen maybe. But I am pretty much most of the time aligned with the Sushant Sareen view. But at the end of the day, we all know that uh, well, as they say, you cannot change your neighbor. So we can't change our neighbor. Pakistan is going to be our neighbor, whether we like it or not. Now, like, how do we deal with this? I know you talk about it in the chapter also. How do we look at the primary decision of how to deal with Pakistan should start with how do we look at Pakistan? So let's say if we assume your baseline, which is beautifully expressed in your title of the chapter itself, how do we take it further then? What are the probable solutions? Do you think this government is doing the right things, or they could do better? What's your opinion?
I think it's a long haul. But with Pakistan, it won't come in a day. It won't come in 10 years. Let's be prepared for long. Not confrontation, but definitely stand up. See, Pakistan is like a bully. हम लोग स्कूल में bully होते थे. The more you give in, the more it will give. When you stand up, then it will say, okay, so you can fight. Pakistan till 71 was under its own la la land. It thought that it actually believed in the Islamic supremacy. एक मुसलमान 10 हिंदू के बराबर है या 100 हिंदू के बराबर है. 71 was was an eye opener. I was going through the newspaper clipping of that era of Pakistani papers, and I was laughing. It's just funny the way they wrote. They were kind of second of their this complete otherworldliness where how can this Kafir army defeat us? 93,000, how can they be captured? So from there, so they always had this superiority, and they're still being taught that in school, uh, in their schools, in their army. This thing, the army, the professionals who are being trained, they have been told that Kafirs are weak, Hindus are weak-hearted, Hindus can run away. So they inculcate that value. They come up with that reality. So that's very difficult. See, for the moment someone comes out convinced that he can easily defeat and beat and get away with it, I think 90% of the people will do that and do that. So that's where the thing is. Pakistan problem is there. What was our mistake was that where I kind of totally agree with Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, I remember reading him long back, and I have kind of I'm kind of inspired by his writing in some way on Pakistan. You don't need to always talk for diplomacy. Sometimes not talking is the best form of diplomacy. And look what happened. When we were talking to Pakistan, the most serious discussion was happening between 2000 and 2008. That was the time of Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh. And you remember most of the bomb blasts happened across the country. कोई भी सर बचा हो सकता है जहाँ bomb blast ना हुआ हो. So if talking leads to bomb blast is better, we are better off without talking. One. Second thing is, we have till now, last 70 years, talked on a different, wrong topic. Modi government, some quarter has started at least making some sense there that it's not on Kashmir we have to talk. बात करनी है तो पे करेंगे. कश्मीर पे आप क्या बात करोगे? कुशल जी बताइए. Will India give Kashmir? Can't give. It's not possible. No government can afford to do that. So बात तो वो जो उन्होंने लिया है ना, they have taken a section. So that's where now I think certain section have started talking that baat karna है POK पे करो. Let's talk on POK and then let's do some give and take. Maybe there at least there will be some of that. And the third part is of course the mindset. Their mindset is absolutely they have not yet come out of their Islamist supremacist. I remember reading Rajiv Dogra's book. It's a beautiful book where borders bleed. And he mentions a very beautiful anecdote about a Pakistani minister. जिनसे उनके कोई एक जानने वाले उसे पूछते हैं कि अच्छा बताइए आपकी दो ख्वाहिशें क्या हैं. And this gentleman in a very very grandiose manner takes out his both hands and says, in one hand I want atom bomb in both my hands, and I want to drop one on New Delhi and another in Bombay. Now, how can you talk to these people? So there is a we have to accept that that yes, you can't say neighbors, but then we also need to remember what Kautilya said. Neighbors necessarily won't be your friend. That's the theory. Neighbors never can be friend. So let's use to that. Neighbors बदल नहीं सकते हैं, but यार neighbors को हम contain तो कर सकते हैं. And like we always do that. Most of neighbors fight. I mean, very rarely it happens that the neighbors are very good friendly terms. So we have to contain them. But it will happen. Things will change. The moment we will contain China. It all now depends on that. China is the big thing. The way we manage to deal with the dragon, these people are a small fries. They understand. Look, they talk about Islam day in and day out. एक बार भी इन्होंने सिंसियान के का इशू उठाया है चाइना से? उठाएंगे नहीं. चाइना उनको भुट्टा बना देगा. Because they know. So they still, but right now China has realization started happening that between them and India there is a huge gap, and gap is widening. The moment their only hope is China right now. Yeah, China आ जाएगा हमारे पास. I think that's the real challenge for Indian diplomacy next 20 years, 30 years. How to deal with the dragon.
Now I want to focus on, maybe this could be the segment where we spend some time, because I think this is very important for India's future. Not only how we deal with China, because a lot of commentary on social media at times, I think, is misunderstands both the West, and the West misunderstands us. I have a unique life where now I stay 4 or 5 months outside India. I stay in the West, especially America and Canada, and I meet a lot of people over there, even inside their political circles or diplomatic circles or think tank circles, and I have noticed the people often talk about Orientalism. People don't understand that if they don't understand us, we also don't understand them. There is a lot of Occidentalism also that complements their Orientalism. Like it's just mind blowing. And if we want a better future for humanity, I think the ideal state is the West and India working together, and it creates a great kind of a bulwark against a rising China, which by all means and measurements is a illiberal society and non-plural society, which I at least have no shame in saying. But obviously the Indian Communist Party might disagree with me, but then they are the Indian Communist Party. So my question is that how do we look at the West now? Because every time some journal comes out and says something about us, every time somebody somewhere in the world says something about us, the reaction from India are, I'm not talking about social media reactions only, magar how should India look at the West and vice versa?
I think it's a very valid question. In fact, and I agree with you that come what, India India and West have to come together for the larger global good. There is no other way out. There is no other way out. Like, we have to find a way out of the solution for whatever differences we have. But we'll have the differences. See, that part I wrote in my book also, that India and the West can be friends, if not frenemies, but they cannot be allies. There are a lot of basic differences the way they look. Look at what they did with Ukraine. Completely unnecessary war. I mean, if you look at a very rational point of view, with a simple understanding about Russia, this Americans would have co-opted Putin into their scheme of things. Putin was very much willing to be part of the Western order. Bill Clinton was on record saying that in one of his interviews, that he was very keen in the early 2000s to be part of that Western order. But the American deep state, American intelligence, and of course there is armament. This thing is there. They completely, they completely blown away that opportunity. And today, look what happened. Today, this is the best case scenario for China in that given circumstances. The country which could have been the enemy or the ally of the West is sitting on the lap of Xi Jinping. So this is how the West operates. West somehow is yet to understand what you often call so Satrubodh. उसको शत्रुबोध वेस्ट को भी नहीं हुआ, हमें भी नहीं है. We also make the similar mistakes. वेस्ट में भी शत्रुबोध का बहुत अभाव है. They don't know who the enemy is. Their real enemy is not Putin today. The real enemy is Xi Jinping. sitting quietly and changing the world and making his completely. In fact, I was reading a 100-year war with China. This by one of the authors, and he said how they have completely hijacked American institutions with Chinese money. American institutions now work for China. It's the state of affairs, not just Hollywood. With how America seek the help of China to save the world. It's not ये हॉलीवुड से बाहर जा चुका है. They have completely penetrated the academia. All the newspapers now seek the Chinese money. So, and that's where the problem is. Like, if you leave it to just Biden administration, they will want to have a good relations with us. But there are many small players promoted and pushed by Chinese forces and other forces who are playing the spoilers. Look, for instance, when Modi was given the state invitation, state chief in the United States, all the major newspapers from NYT, Washington Post, all this came out with a skeptical editorial saying that this is back for democracy. And largest democracy and oldest democracy meeting together. And these so-called liberal papers find it a setback for democracy. Why? Because the money is coming from the illiberal source. So that's where the challenge is. And that's the challenge with the liberal society, I say. It's very easy to penetrate. India में वैसा हो रहा है. It's very easy to penetrate. Because people you need to cross the horse. And despite that, I believe India and the West will have to come together. That, I think, largely understanding on the government level is there. You see, when this Americans talk rubbish on Kejriwal issue, they sat together. They didn't behave as aggressively as they behave with German ambassador, but they tried to sort out. So that understanding is there, but this thing happen. वो थोड़ा सा खटपट होता है. घर में दो औरतें होती है, थोड़ा सा खटपट होता है, वो होगा. That the larger enemy is China. That understanding is growing by the day, and I wish that understanding happens. Well, we just can't let China go away with that, and we completely squander the chance. But that's a challenge. That's a challenge about global diplomacy for next 20 years at least.
But how do you think the current government has managed this? Do you think they've done a decent job, or do you think we have a long way to go in managing this entire issue? No, so what I was saying is, as far as this foreign policy conundrum is concerned, how do you think we have to deal with it? Like, do you think the government has done a good job as of now, decent job, or we have a long way to go? Like, that's what I was trying to understand.
I think it's a long way. Very definitely. China is something is going to stay. Though I personally believe that China is not as strong as it appears. I genuinely, and that's the case with most dictatorial states or certain states. They appear to be more powerful than they actually are. Look what happened with USSR, for instance. Just in one fine day, just disintegrated. China internal reports which suggest they are not good. They are definitely not good. And I will want to believe that China is much weaker than what it appears. But for a country like India, we just can't get into that sense of complacency. We have to believe that China is as strong as it is today, and we have to accordingly. And the good part is that that's why I believe that on that front, at least this government is doing well. Its focus is there, where due. It's making the infrastructure, roads, and everything to the northeast, or where it's case with Ladakh, all the places. So it is making the fundamental change where it realizes who the enemy will be next 5 years or 10 years down the line, and it can come earlier than that also, which I know it's already part of us. But the thing is, I think we have to be as you said in a while back, that we have to have that coalition of democracy together, where India and the West can come together. It's very difficult. Half the Europe is already dying to be part of Chinese this thing. But definitely India and America have to be there, and I think that larger consensus is there that we need to work together to deal with the tiger. And other countries can also. That's why I put in my book I put about Japan also. Like, we have to create that coalition against China, where Japan is there, Australia is there, India is there, America definitely is there. So maybe I don't know about France, but yeah, I'm saying that we have to create kind of strong coalition where we at least put some focus and some pressure on China. And but I believe that the moment the way we are growing up right now, China will try to do more internal disturbances in the country right now. But it believes that this is the time it can. The moment India is like a 15 trillion or 12 trillion economy, it becomes very difficult. It becomes a bit too big to contain, kind of thing. So that's why you'll see a lot of things like Chinese forces are there at the LSE, that they're changing the name of the Tibetan cities and towns. So these are kind of things where they want to. They also believe that this is a time where you can do something with India. Tomorrow maybe you'll not get that chance. So yeah, so that's why I think it's an interesting time. It's a difficult time. But then yeah, that's why good leaders are made for.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be, we have to be very careful. I don't like the dismissive attitude or the gungo attitude. It has to be a horses for courses approach. Uh, the Western media is one world of its own. Like the amount of negative publicity that India gets in the Western media, and then the Western government, the Western state apparatus, and the Western media apparatus are two different worlds of its own. Like if you read the American media or if you read BBC and many others, and the way they are covering India, there was a study. In fact, I had shown that study in one of my monologues, which actually mapped some of these media outlets, and they said that their coverage of India is overwhelmingly negative, and the reason is that just gets clicks. It's almost as if
Yeah,
new coping mechanism for the West, that chalo inse to acche hain hum, kind of a weird situation. Like they're coping through that, and I think that is going to create serious problems in our relationship with the West. And but he can, let's see whatever. But Utpal, it was an absolute pleasure to read your book. I think you've done a fantastic job in covering a lot of these contemporary issues, and you've referenced all of those things well, which was one heartening thing. Your referencing in the book was very good. There are a copious number of references which one can go and verify. I mean at least people who want to can verify. But so I wish you all the best, and looking forward to your next book whenever it comes out.
thank you, Kushal.
All right, guys,
Thank you
we'll
very much. So coming from you, I think it's a huge compliment because I know that you are one person who cover from cover. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, guys, we will wrap today's discussion up. But before we wrap it up, once again, I want to remind everyone, you can in go and check the description of the podcast, and you'll see all the social media details as well as the link to buy the book. So I will encourage all of you to go click the link and buy the book, and you can let Utpal know your views on the book. At the same time, if you want to support the Cārvāka podcast, you know the drill. You have to like, subscribe, the routine. I mean, if you're an audio listener, leave a rating on the audio platform. And if you really want to go to the next level, do think about joining the membership program of the Cārvāka podcast. And that way, this podcast remains ad free, which it has. And if you keep on doing that, it helps me to take even more heterodox views and risks as far as content creation is concerned, which is kind of a taboo in India these days. You can't, if you are a right wing branded, then you should not talk to the left. If you're left wing branded, you should not talk to the right. It's this absurd way that people function. And I don't believe that. I will talk to anyone and everyone I find interesting, which is why I talk to a multitude of people on this podcast. I have people from all walks of life. So if you can, do support the membership program, whether on YouTube, Patreon, Fanmo, wherever, and do buy this book. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye bye.